As I spawned into this world, I took a look around and I saw a jungle biome as well as a huge river. I went ahead and punched down the closest tree that I found in order to craft a crafting table as well as a wooden axe. With this new axe, it now meant that I could chop down trees just a bit more efficiently. Afterwards, I spotted some cocoa beans on this jungle tree, which I had to take if I wanted some cookies later on. There were also some bamboo growing just on the border of the jungle biome, which I wanted to bring with me to wherever I started my new base. After getting enough bamboo, I saw that there were melons growing on the other side of the river, so after some calculated risk, I dove down to get them. However, this quickly became dangerous as there were monsters trying to get me down in the river. Thankfully, I managed to reach the shore without getting hit. However, this was a reminder that things was not gonna be as easy as I thought it would. After harvesting the melons, I went ahead and crafted a boat which I could use in order to journey down the river until I found a place I could call home. Also, remember to like and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Thanks. After sailing a bit down the river, I finally found a spot which I thought looked promising. There was a lot that needed to be done with the place, however I saw great potential in it. I spent way too long just exploring the area until I noticed that the sun was going down, and this could quickly become dangerous as I had no shelter at all. I quickly made my way back to the boat in order to craft a couple of tools I needed in order to make a shelter within the mountainside, so I started to dig my way in because I did not want to die on the very first night. And I know it doesn't look very pretty, however it does its job in keeping me safe, so I can stay here and upgrade my tools and get ready for the next day. I also figured that I needed something to defend myself with, so I crafted a stone sword. And since I hadn't found any coal, I went ahead and crafted a furnace in order to craft some charcoal. Since I was too scared to step outside, I instead just went mining, and eventually I stumbled upon some coal. I kept mining and I found some iron, which was pretty nice. And after making my way back to the surface, it was now daytime and the start of day 2. I could now start chopping down all the trees to make space for my new base. I then started playing around a bit with how I wanted the layout of the base to be. It wasn't very complicated, but at least it was better than living in a cave. Also went ahead and replanted some of the sugar canes that I found right by my base. And at this point the base looks super scuffed, and you just have to trust the process. I spent the rest of the wood that I had, and since it was nighttime I couldn't go out and get any more, so I headed down to the caves. And after a bit of exploring I stumbled upon this huge cavern, but there were just so many mobs there, so I said, nope, I'm out of here. As I returned back home, I put some more iron in the furnace. I also went ahead and crafted myself a iron pickaxe as well as an iron sword. I placed a couple of furnaces in my main base before eventually starting on the second floor of the building as well as the roof. And once the roof was built, I took a step back to admire the beautiful work I had done. Later that same night I got a visit from an angry neighbor, which I had to deal with. And the rest of the night was spent down in the mines gathering some more resources. And of course I needed some windows in my base, so I went ahead and gathered some sand right by the side of the river. Once I returned back, I put the sand in the furnace, and while waiting for that to finish I went out exploring a bit, and that's when I noticed there was a village not that far away from my base. But since it was dark and raining, I instead returned back home to place down all of the glass that was finished cooking. And of course I had to go ahead and make some stairs going to the second floor. After finishing some more work around the base, I headed down to the mines once again, and this time I found something I hadn't really seen before. I didn't know if these amethyst nodes were rare, but I just went ahead and gathered some of it. Once I got back to the surface, it was still raining, however it was now time to check out the neighboring village. As usual, the villagers didn't really have any good trades, so I just went ahead and pillaged some of their stuff. One of the chests contained some potatoes, which was really nice as I could bring them back to my base. I'd also just made this white bed, however I found this yellow bed which looked nicer, I guess. And as I was laying these sheep, I saw something across on the other mountain that I found interesting and I really wanted to check out. Thankfully it stopped raining, and I also found this library where I could steal all of the books. So after a successful visit to the village, the sun was setting and I made my way back home. Now that I had a new yellow bed, which I stole, I could finally get some well-deserved rest. I woke up bright and early to get started on a little temporary farm. I went ahead and planted all of the melons that I found on day 1, as well as all of the potatoes that I just stole. Once I got done with this, I went exploring a bit down the river and I found these pumpkins ready for harvest. The rest of day 6 was spent peacefully exploring, sailing down the river until I eventually had to make my way back home. And let me tell you, it felt much better returning to a base that was not inside a mountain. So when I woke up on day 7, I made my way up to the structure that I spotted earlier. I found this chest which had a couple of hoes in it, and there was also a golden apple, which I mean it's fine, I guess. Once I returned, I planted a couple of bushes around the house, because I guess that's just what people do. I also started on this pathway down to the front of the house just to make everything feel a bit more connected. And I finished it off with some more bush just to hide how ugly it was. I had run out of iron, so I made my way down to the caves again to find some more, and fighting these creepers without having any armor was kinda scary. Thankfully, after a bit of searching, I did manage to find some iron. And after continuing exploring the caves, I all of a sudden found some diamonds. All of the lava surrounding the diamonds made them kinda tricky to gather, however I did manage, and in the end it turned out to be around 6 diamonds. Feeling pretty good about this exploration, I went ahead and mined some more before eventually making my way back home. Once I returned, I did some more work on the front of the base, just trying to make everything look a bit more put together. And now that some of the iron was done cooking, I went ahead and crafted an iron chest piece as well as some leggings. And it felt pretty good finally getting some armor. I then started working on some stairs down to the river as well as the farm. Many of the potatoes was now finished growing, so I could finally harvest them to get some more food. I continued making the area outside of my house a bit more pretty. And with the 3 diamonds I had gotten earlier, I could now make myself a diamond pickaxe. So with this new upgrade, I went ahead and mined some more, and eventually I found some more diamonds. And I guess I was pretty lucky, as there were 6 diamonds in this little vein. This meant I could head back and upgrade some of my tools, such as the diamond sword, as well as making a diamond axe. And at this point I finally felt that things were really coming together. Feeling more prepared than ever before, I went ahead and tackled on the caves once again. And for whatever reason there was just a ton of creepers down in the caves. And eventually I found some more diamonds, which I had walked past earlier. However, there was only one, and I also completely destroyed the zombie, which is nice. And not long after I got into a really sticky situation with the skeleton. He had an enchanted bow which absolutely destroyed me, so I just had to run for my life. The next day I figured it was time to gather some obsidian in order to craft an enchantment table. So when I returned, I went ahead and made it. I then needed a place I could put down the enchantment table, so I went ahead and used the old shelter in order to make a room. I then heard some sounds coming from the river, and it was this zombie burning, and he dropped me this thing. It was then time to place down the enchantment table. However, I didn't really have that many bookshelves, but it was a start. I then saw an enderman I figured I could kill. However, things did not go as planned. Thankfully though, I did not die on the 15th day. After all that excitement, I needed to do something more quiet in order to calm myself down. And then I took a look at the base, and it's something, I guess. On the very next morning, I decided it was now time to go exploring a bit, so I headed down to the port and jumped in my boat. One of the things I wanted to find during this exploration was dark oak wood, in order to bring back some saplings to my base. Eventually I stumbled upon this village further down the river, and since I got so many new things, I needed to upgrade my boat with a chest on it. I continued further up the river like I was looking for Colonel Kurtz, and eventually I stumbled upon a new village. The village had a couple of items I hadn't found before, which was nice, but it was also starting to get dark. On the very next day, I continued exploring until I found this mesa biome, which looked absolutely stunning. And of course I had to make a stop in order to collect some of the materials in the mesa biome. I ventured to the top of the mountain in order to see if I could spot anything interesting, and I did. I spotted another village on the coast. So I returned to the boat, and however, it really wasn't that interesting. It didn't have anything new, so I just kept on exploring. I then pillaged another village before eventually sleeping and continuing my exploration. On the next day I spotted this dolphin swimming around, so I wanted to swim with him, and I almost died actually. And I guess the dolphin's master plan was just to get me to swim all the way down and eventually almost drown. And yeah, this was scary. I also spotted this ocean fortress, which I did not even dare try to explore. After a bit of sailing, I also found this shipwreck. This gave me some carrots, which was nice. I didn't have that from before. There was also this bird. Excuse me, this buried treasure map. And wouldn't you know it, way back on the horizon I spotted a dark oak forest. This meant it was now time to level up my woodcutting skill. And since nighttime was arriving, I made myself a little shelter within this giant mushroom. And after successfully gathering 22 saplings, I made my way back home. However, I also found a nether portal on the ocean floor, which had a chest, which gave me a golden helmet with respiration enchantment on it. And after being gone for so long, I finally arrived at a more familiar place. One of the first things I did when I arrived home was to upgrade some of my furnaces to a blast furnace. And with these new beautiful dark oak logs, I could make myself some new dark oak doors. And I also did some general upgrades and details within the base. I also decided to replace all of the oak logs with the dark oak logs instead. At this point I also needed to plant the saplings that I had gathered, so I went ahead and did that. And I guess I was in a decorating mood, because I just continued decorating around the house, and as well as making some small upgrades. And of course I need to make a little balcony outside of my bedroom, because who doesn't want a balcony? And on the very next day I got a visit from the wandering trader, and you know, he already sealed his fate when he stepped on my property. I then started to expand the layout of my whole area, so I expanded firstly by making this road up to the mountaintop. I also started clearing out some areas I knew I wanted to build in the future. And I just continued on making some more adjustments and making the place look a bit nicer. I also heard that you can make spyglasses now, so I went ahead and of course I had to make a spyglass. I then started to map out my base. And this was just a great way to see just how much I've done so far. I figured the roof looked a bit bland, so I went ahead and added some details to it. And I think it ended up looking pretty alright. And at this point I figured I wanted to make a new cave, so I started making the cave. And once again, I tried to fight an Enderman, and once again, it almost turned out really badly. I wanted a quicker way to get down to the mines, so I started to work on a railroad system. I continued mining down until I eventually found this dripstone, and this took me into this massive cave, and I was kinda scared. And of course, since this is hardcore, I really didn't want to die, so I tried to play it safe, and eventually they started battling each other, so that was nice. And thankfully, it all turned out great. It was particularly great because I found a lot of iron as well as coal. And eventually I stumbled upon this really tight cave, and I could just continue to follow it down. Then I saw this opening, and what I saw there I had never seen before. I managed to make my way down, where I found these candles, which I figured was a really nice decoration to have in my base. And this place just looked absolutely stunning. I then spotted something that kinda looked like a portal. And this place was also really creepy, so I was kinda scared. Eventually I found this chest, and I found something really interesting, which were the armor trim. I continued exploring until I found another chest, however, there were also a ton of diamonds down in these caves, so that was really nice. And not long after that, I found a dungeon. Since I didn't want to lose the location of the spawner in order to make an XP farm, I made a staircase all the way up to the top. I wanted to see where I ended up, and actually it was just a village on the other side of the mountain right by my base. This meant I could easily just head back home and get some sleep. But before that, I went ahead and made myself a diamond pickaxe once again. On the very next day, I made myself a diamond chest piece, which I combined with the armor trim to make myself a trimmed armor piece. Very, very nice. And at this point I had decided that I wanted the railroad to go down to the dungeon that I had found. So my strategy was just mining straight through the mountain until I got to the other side. I then started to get to work in order to craft a railroad that could go underwater, down further in the cave. And since I needed some glass for my underwater tunnel, I headed to the mesa biome in order to collect some sand. On my way, however, I spotted these new mobs, the armadillos or whatever, and these were pretty cute. Either way, I collected a ton of sand and eventually made my way back home. I then started melting the sand, and I needed to craft the booster rails as well. And for whatever reason, I've made these 1,000 times, but I just couldn't remember how to make them. Eventually I got it right though, and I could start placing down a railroad. I also killed this drowned zombie, and he dropped me the trident, which was cool. I then started to work on the tunnel, and I wish I could say that this ended up looking better, but it didn't, and I'm sorry. But yeah. I then made myself a little cacti farm. And also made this genius solution to my problem. And it worked like a charm. Yep. I then got to work on the area outside of the XP farm, just to make it a bit nicer, to make it feel like a base. And I also found a couple of diamonds while doing this, so that's always nice. God damn, I found a lot of diamonds. Once I returned and slept, I made myself a minecart. I placed down all of the powered rails that I had. And just like that, it was now time to try it. Perfect. Anyways, this is the full ride. Enjoy! It's beautiful. During the night there came a thunderstorm, and I was kinda scared for my fully wooden house. However, a quick solution to this was just go to sleep. Bundles was now also introduced, so I had to make myself a bundle. Since I still didn't have bookshelves for my enchantment table, I needed to make a cow farm real quick. Now that the cow pen was ready, I decided I also wanted a sheep farm, so I went ahead and expanded to the upper layer where I could have my sheep. A bit of decorating and the place started to come together. Now the next challenge was finding some cows and transporting them all the way back to the pen. And I think I found a pretty good solution. And that's one cow, only one to go. I did find a couple of sheep and a lot of cows, however they were kinda troublesome to transport all the way back. I found the solution of just making this bridge and just push them down in the river, and it worked most of the time. So now both cows were in place and I could now start mass producing. Look at them go. Just look at them. And there's one out of 2 sheep ready in place. So the second round didn't exactly go as planned. However, most importantly, the sheep got down perfectly. And just like that, I had my 2 sheep and my cows, and everything was looking good. Since the storage in my house was now starting to fill up, I needed a second building, I figured, in order to store all of my shit. So that's what I did. I started to build a new building for my chests. Cue the building montage music. And now I could place down even more chests in this building, and everything was looking good. I wanted to connect this new building with my base with this like underground passageway. And I don't know the best way to sort items, but I think this is how the pros do it. I could now also remove my old chest from the base and move them to the new one, which gave me more room in my base. And of course, no building is complete without a couple of bushes around it. On my way to check on the cows, I could see that they had been infiltrated by a couple of pillagers. Luckily, I did manage to kill them all, no problem. Also needed to plant a bunch of sugarcane in order to get paper for my books. And at this point, I really didn't like the look of the harbor that I had made earlier, so I removed everything, including the farm, and started to work on a new one. And yeah, they looked pretty good. And since I had removed the teeny tiny farm that I had down by the harbor, I needed to expand to make a new area which I could make a bigger farm. And one of the problems I faced by living at this exact area is that there were so many mountains and everything was so steep, so building farms and such was more difficult than usual. And I just took a step back to look at the base at this point, and I was really starting to like it. Once again, I headed down to the mines to get some more materials, and once again I found this underground fortress thing, only this time it got a lot more scarier. And at this point, when my screen started to go dark, I actually thought I was gonna die. However, I went out of there real quick. So after almost being scared to death down in the caves, I decided to do some more calm activities, such as working on the tunnel between my two houses. I slaughtered some more cows to get some more leather. And I could go ahead and place down 3 more bookshelves. Well, 2. The new farm was also coming along nicely. And on the morning of day 71, I decided I wanted to go on another adventure, so I headed in the opposite way in the river. And the main goal of this adventure was mainly to get spruce logs in order to get spruce saplings back to the base. And the first point of interest that I found was a coastal village. So I went ahead with usual by stealing their stuff and killing their animals. Before eventually heading back to the boat and continuing exploring. Since the sun was setting and I was way out in the wilderness, I decided to just sleep right by the river before eventually waking up and continuing exploring. And it didn't take very long before I spotted this giant pillager tower, which I just had to check out. And I knew this could turn bad really quickly, so I had to play this super safe. I then found this cage which had these blue flying mobs in it, which I wanted to save. And the pillagers just kept on coming, so I knew this could turn bad quick. I managed to lock myself in their tower, and thankfully there was no pillagers there. I made my way to the top, where I found a chest which contained a goat horn, which I had never seen before. And finally I managed to kill the remaining pillagers. Almost all the remaining pillagers. So I went ahead and saved these mobs, and I gave one of them my shovel, and he became my friend. Then my exploration continued and I managed to find some sea cucumbers. Also found this beautiful coral reef, which I explored some, and found this chest. Didn't really have anything good though. I did manage to find this sand village however, and this had a couple of nice items. And after further exploration, I found this interesting world generation which I had to check out, and right underneath it I found some spruce logs. So my goal of this adventure was now complete, and now I just needed to make my way back home. And I'll go ahead and say that this adventure really was a success. I found the spruce logs I wanted, as well as I made a new friend. And right before arriving back home, I found this parrot, and I actually managed to tame him. And now I arrive back home with 2 new buddies. And at last, at day 78, I could finally enchant my tools with level 30 enchantment. And yeah, it was pretty nice. It was also now time to start thinking about going to the Nether, and I made myself a portal. However, I didn't know that you couldn't use crying obsidian for the portal. And on that terrible disappointment, I had to go down and get some more obsidian. I also found a bunch of diamonds, which in hindsight I should have saved until I got fortune on my pickaxe, but you win some, you lose some. And just like that, the gates of oblivion was now opened. With all the diamonds I had gotten, I could now make myself a full set of diamond armor. Nice. It was then time to explore the Nether. I was actually pretty lucky with the Nether portal spawn, as I spawned directly into a Nether fortress. I found another armor trim, which is pretty nice. In one of the corridors there were a lot of mobs, however, of course, I managed to kill them. Killing the blazes were perfect because I needed the blaze rods for the ender pearls. I also found some nether wart, which I could use in some potions later on, probably. And I just continued exploring the fortress as well as killing all the blaze I could find. I then switched to a golden chest piece in order to be able to trade with this pigman. He didn't really give me anything too useful except for maybe the fire resistance potion. Oh, and also these spectral arrows were kinda cool, I must admit. And oh lord, that's close. And eventually, after a successful nether run, I made my way back, where I had gotten a new visitor. I decorated the outside of the nether portal a bit, just to make it look, I don't know, interesting. I then went ahead and trimmed my diamond helmet as well, and I was feeling pretty cool right now. And I figured now that I had so much stuff to enchant, I should work on my XP farm. And I must admit, I really don't know like the best, most efficient way to do this. However, I think it kind of worked either way. So yeah. And then I finally got what I wanted, which was the Fortune 3 enchant on my diamond pickaxe. And since I had been putting it off for so long, I finally finished the tunnel. And another project I had been putting off was the expansion of the harbor. But it was now time to just wrap it up and get it done. After this was mostly done, I returned to my mob spawner and I got a lot of experience. I enchanted my axe and got Fortune 2, I guess. But it was now time to start thinking about finding the stronghold, the way to the end. So I went ahead and made 3 Eyes of Ender. I also found some more of these piglins. However, once again, they didn't really drop anything useful. And then this little guy showed up, and I don't know if he gave me something or just stole my gold bars. Either way, it was now time to send out my first Eye of Ender. And this sent me in the direction further down the river. And all of a sudden the Eye of Ender decided to turn the other way, which meant that I had crossed the stronghold. I had only 2 Eyes of Ender left, so I was really hoping they didn't break, because I was really close. With only 1 Eye of Ender left, I was really starting to worry that I wouldn't be able to find it. However, it still didn't break. And then the interesting thing happened, where it didn't go into the sky, instead it headed down in the earth. So naturally, I just tried to dig down to see if I could find it myself. At first it seemed hopeless, because I didn't really know what level the stronghold was located at, and I just kept finding random caves. But all of a sudden, when heading down, I stumbled upon a brick wall. And what's most insane about this is when I broke the wall, it led me directly into the portal room. I went ahead and explored around a little bit to see if there was any treasure or chest laying around, but I didn't seem to find any. But since I didn't have the remaining 10 Eyes of Ender, I couldn't activate the portal for now. But instead, I made a marker of the exact location where the stronghold was and started to make my way back home. Thankfully, it wasn't super far from the stronghold back to my base, which was really convenient. Once I returned, I unloaded my bundle. And I placed down this chest, which would be the End Dragon preparation chest, where I put down all the things I need for the boss fight. And one of the things I needed was more arrows, so I needed to make myself a chicken coop. I managed to bring a couple of chickens fairly easily into the coop, so that was nice at least. And once I awoke on day 100, I walked around and placed down a couple of details here and there and finished a couple of buildings. And that's pretty much it. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want the part 2, be sure to like the video and also subscribe to the channel, as that helps out a lot. So yeah, see you next time.